Welcome. Hello, everybody. I'm Junie Swadron, your host for Your Life Matters Soul Connection podcast. And today, oh my gosh, we're moving into the brand new year, 2022, with one of my favorite people on the entire planet, Tom Evans. Tom, we were doing this last year this time, 2021, and here we are again. I think we are putting together some kind of ritual. What do you think? Welcome.
Well, let's make it a habit. That sounds fantastic. Thanks for inviting me back. What a lovely sense of deja vu.
Yeah, totally. It's so good to see you. How are you making out there in England?
Well, we've gone through, and talking of deja vu, we've gone through lockdown after lockdown. We're not quite locked down at the moment, although other parts of the UK are locked down. But I guess after the new year, there'll be some sort of circuit, they call it a circuit breaker. And what have you. But for me, all the lockdowns were just an excuse to get even more productive. So thank you very much. Although obviously all the people have been through some terrible times, I feel for.
Yes, I feel the same way. And I've spoken to many people like you who are so prolific that this time during lockdown has just kicked in the muse. The muse has just been going wild over these last couple of years with a lot of people, more creative than ever. And I wish that on everyone, and that health gets restored and people's lives more sense of normalcy, not the old normal, but a new one where people can start to breathe easier. And I hope we can go into that a little later, because I think you have a pulse on knowing more than most of us do, because you seem to travel in a lot of realms that many of us do not. And I don't say that tongue in cheek. I get that you really do. Would you agree?
Yeah, and guess what? It's a skill which can be taught. And this next coming year is all about me sharing the tools and resources on how to do it. I've been doing it not organically with people and not consciously, but it came to me that the time is right for lots of other people on the planet to learn how to do this. And everyone does it. Everyone does it naturally, but doesn't realize that the magician inside them that can be unleashed, and the fun that you can have when you explore the hidden dimensions.
That's beautiful. And we need people like yourself who can do that, who can take what may be natural and that may be innate in us. But if we don't know we're doing it, or we don't know we're capable of it, we don't know how, and you have been able to, okay, well, this is the way, then I can't imagine people who wouldn't want to know the secret way into a deeper and more profound understanding of how this universe works and who we are in this galaxies and universes that we are a part. And so, wow, all the more power to you. So, yeah. So tell me, Tom, here we are moving into 2022, and your life. For those people who do not know who you are, I just want to bring in a little bit of a bit about you, that perhaps you can tell people. I know that you started off as a BBC engineer many years ago, and then you found yourself moving away from that at some point, realizing that you have other interests. And you've explored so many. And I know that you've become, we met when you were doing a timeful meditation program, and how to use time in a way that you can slow down and extend time and expand time. And who's ever even thought of such a thing? I hadn't. And I found you just happened to show up on my screen one day serendipitously. And wow, what is this all about? And we became friends after that. And here we are all these years later. Although I think you and I were just talking about, it seems like 100 years ago. Oh, that's imagery. That's another one of your books. How many books have you written, by the way? I'm interrupting.
18, I think, is the current count.
Goodness gracious. Wow. Good for you. So you left BBC as an engineer and you became tell us a little bit about just a little bit about the progression, because you've moved from writing as an author and a writing coach and a therapist and hypnotist into music, and you do all of this beautiful ambient music and meditations.
Well, I think you know quite a lot about this with your lovely Rewrite Your Life program. I found that in my mid-40s, when I didn't have a midlife crisis, I had a midlife hiccup, and I just got really cheesed off with the corporate world. I'd done my second exit of my business, and the two times I was most financially successful in my life, I was also the most stressed. So I got into this equation of success and stress together. And someone said I looked really haggard and I should learn to meditate. And I did, I persisted. And then I just discovered kind of weird and magical things started happening. And as an engineer and as a scientist, I started to research them. And my one ability, which has gone run all the way through, is the desire to understand how things work. So when I was at the BBC, is the magic of television. You know, how can you take this image or listen to this sound on one side of the world and someone hear it and see it on the other side of the world? And I learned how all that technology worked when I was in my early 20s. And then I went, okay, how does this thing called the mind work? And I did loads of research into what scientists knew, but I discovered that the meta scientists, people like Rudolf Steiner, Paul Foster Case, Madame Blavatsky, all of these people had a better grip on it than the scientists had. And, you know, some of the stuff I'm doing now, we're talking about getting to these other dimensions. You know, I used a lot of Steiner's work to do this. He wrote about it 100 years ago, but the audience for it was very limited then. Now we've got this mindfulness movement. It's amazing. So what happened was I became an author by accident. I wrote a book by accident. I became an author's coach by accident. I started putting meditations with my books because my books were about consciousness states. And I thought, rather than just reading about the state of consciousness, wouldn't it be great when we can get someone to experience it? So I went on a course of hypnotherapy, did some NLP, and I've never been trained in meditation. I've never been to an ashram or anything like that. So, but because I come from it from a left field point of view, and I'm from an engineering perspective, it was all about how can I explain these consciousness states and share them with people. And it was in 2015, I remember, that Insight Timer discovered me. We met in 2016, I believe, which it does seem like a lifetime ago. I feel like I've known you for much longer than 5 years. And so Insight Timer discovered my meditations, not my books, my meditations. And then I became a meditation teacher by accident. About 4 years into that journey, I was using loads of other people's ambient music, and I found a teacher who could teach me compositional theory, or I should say the teacher found me or walked in front of my path, and then I learned how to do my own ambient music. At the same time, I did this transition from non-fiction to fiction and really started having fun with the work and then combining the two. So having a work of fiction with music to go with it, and then having meditations, and I call them meditales now. So you combine the story with the meditation and the music all together. So you have the third book I'm just writing in this Soul Wave series is a book of meditales. So it's music, storyline, and a kind of meditative storytelling that goes with it as well.
Wow, that is fascinating to have music in a story. You know,
sound effects. You know, again, I'm not the first to do that. Douglas Adams, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, amazing.
Oh, right. That's true. Yeah, but I don't think it's done very often. Don't really hear it in all of those audiobooks.
Yeah, and you don't often get the same person doing it. So, for example, you get H.G. Wells' War of the Worlds. Then several years later, Jeff Wynne, I think, or Jeff Glynn did the musical of it, the album of it. Whereas I've written the book and done the album together. And lots of people have been listening to the ambient music in the background while they're reading the book and stuff like that. So they get into this.
Well, that's so beautiful because that you have that ability and you open yourself to it. It's that scientist in you, right? And the engineer scientist, like you say, you want the understanding. So you look to understand something and you're curious and you want to know. And so you walk in with beginner's mind. Oh, I'd like to learn to do this. And you do, and you learn it. And so you can create all of these different mediums of art, of expression, which is brilliant. And now you're doing something another a tarot deck, right?
Yeah.
And tell us about that, the overstanding of tarot.
Yeah, well, and to understand something, really, you have to overstand it, and it's a kind of Rastafari word, really. That's the root of it. It's not actually in the English language just yet, in the English dictionary. But if you go to a website called the Urban Dictionary and type in overstanding, there's some fantastic descriptions of what the word means. And so, alongside all this journey, I studied with two esoteric schools. One was the Western Mystery School based in California, the builders of the Adytum, based on Paul Foster Case's work. And the other was an angelic school in Germany called the Cryon School. And I developed this magic, which was a synthesis of male procedural magic from the Western mystery tradition and female intuitive magic. And I call it the synthesis. So a man can dispense or allow female magic to come through him, and a female can be the purveyor of male magic. But when you combine the two together, then you get this extra layer of magic, which has got the best of both worlds built into them. And what I noticed about the male Western mystery tradition is two things. Men seem to like to make it complicated and overcomplicated. And part of the reason for that, I learned, was one, to keep the secrets from falling into the wrong hands, but mostly it's because of ego. So all this Western mystery stuff that I got into, and this is over 10 years ago, I just found it really overcomplicated, and that doesn't sit well in my world. So I wrote some books about the tarot called Flavors of Thought, which is about the major arcana, and Planes of Being, which is about the minor arcana. And so I always knew there was a third book in that trilogy, to make a trilogy. But it was kind of me being ready to write it and the world being ready to receive it. So last year, I've been working with this amazing artist who I've not met, like you, a great friend. I've met her around the same time as you, I think 2016, 2017. Siri. And we've been working together, creating these lovely daily things called Just for Today. So I write some words and she'll then create some art to it. And then we flip sometimes, and she just sends me some art and I write some words to it. And we've always wanted to do a tarot deck together. And the tarot's this thing. It's an amazing set of instructions. It's thousands and thousands of years old. I think that you can go back to Sumerian times. They found these clay cylinders which look very much like tarot keys. But the tarot has been kind of stuck in a certain pattern for a long time. And if a thing is stuck in a pattern, it limits your level of understanding, and it limits your level of. So the tarot evolves. So what I did was I came across the Osho Zen deck. I noticed the Osho Zen deck had a 23rd major arcana, a master key. So I thought, well, we'll have one of those. Also, so instead of 22 keys, there's 23 in the Osho Zen deck, and I've put 23 in the overstanding deck as well. There's 4 suits in the minor arcana of 14 cards each. We've got 5 suits, and they're 15 each. So it expands it vertically and it expands it horizontally, if you know what I mean. And one thing you can do with the tarot deck is do readings. That's what the classic thing is. You do a reading with it and card spread and stuff like that. And imagine if you've got a card spread which is 4, it's very, very linear, if you know what I mean. And it maps into the 4 elements, the fire, air, water, and the earth. When you bring a 5th deck in, you tap into the ether. And you apply female intuitive magic to a male-dominated form, which is just great. But the other thing you do is the fifth deck is not in the linear plane; it sits above it.
How does it do that?
The point of everything. So you see, you start to understand
the overstanding.
You start to understand why we understand. And that, in essence, is the overstanding. You start to see the point of everything. Now, there's a lovely model, which is this idea that we're 9-dimensional spirits having a 3-dimensional experience with the forward arrow of time. And the idea is that the one of these suits in the minor arcana taps into the fire plane, the archetypal plane of ideas. The next suit taps into the creative plane, which is where these ideas, these seed ideas, start to get their form. And then we go into the formative plane, which is the plane of how are we going to do this? What's the process? And then we end up in the physical plane. And there's this model I use called the cascade of creativity. And if you let an idea percolate down from, I've just got this idea to do overstanding. And then what can it be? Well, it's going to be, is it a plane? Is it an automobile? Is it a ship? It's going to be a deck of cards. It's going to be a book. It's going to be an album. It's going to be a set of meditations. It's going to be a course. And it's going to be a series of a process that someone can go to from understanding, just understanding, which is in its own right is amazing, because we're these bits of cells coming out of stars that can understand things, to a level of overstanding. But at the same time it does this, we do it from the position above the seed idea plane, the 9th dimension. We do it from an 11th dimensional plane. So we look down on the whole of creation from within creation.
Whoa. When can we get this deck?
Well, the deck will probably be middle of the year, but from January I'm going to start streaming the content.
Oh, fantastic!
Because I realise it's something that it's not the sort of thing you got to deliver and then it's available. I want people to integrate the learnings. So in January, you can do some pre-learning, going back to the flavors of thought that seeded all of this.
Yes.
And then in February, I start the new materials. But you need to understand the flavors of thought first before you do any of the other work. And the idea is that behind flavors of thought is that most thoughts aren't our own. And to understand different thought forms have got different signatures inside our head. So, for example, a feeling is non-verbal, but it's very strong. And then we layer conscious thought on top of it. Oh, I don't like this, or I love this, or my gut's not in it. But it starts with the thought form from the gut.
From the feeling from the gut.
Then the other thing is, I must get back in touch with Tom again to do a repeat podcast. That started as an idea that came off the top of your head and percolates down, if you know what I mean. So you've got two lots of thought forms, one that are external, one which is external, and then the third set, which is the ones that run inside our heads when we make decisions, when we check things, when we discriminate and make a choice between one thing and another. And the tarot is a map of our thought forms. It's an amazing map of our thought forms.
How do you distinguish the difference between that and the light bulb moments that you often talk
about? The light bulb moments are these external things. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that's what got me into all of this. I wrote this book on light bulb moments, and I realized, hey, light bulb moments are a specific type of thought on how do we conjure them up. And then I found out that within light bulb moments, there's different flavors of light bulb moment.
Give me an example of that.
One can be attention. So one can be the idea. I've got this great idea, just come in and I'm going to do this. This is going to be my life's work, just come in. The other can be just noticing something off your eye line. Your attention being drawn to somewhere else. And that's not even a thought.
Right. It's an awareness.
Yeah. But it's external.
But it's a conscious awareness.
Yeah. Or another good example is you know the phone's about to ring and you know who's on the other end of it. That's an external thought form. Right? We have them all the time. And it's not just us. Your dog knows you're coming home. Your budgerigars know you're coming home. All that kind of stuff. So it's not just exclusive to humans. These are these are these sort of awarenesses. They're kind of known by science now. It's known that we've probably got 53 different senses, not just 5. But these are in the class of super sense. That they're kind of slightly ignored by materialistic sciences and completely unignored by your great meta scientists like Steiner and the like.
You're making it contemporary.
He calls them super sensibilities, which I think is a great word.
Super sensibilities. It is a great word. Yeah. It totally is. Yeah. And you're calling it overstanding.
And so right now, I just got drawn to the butterfly coming out of the clouds that's behind you.
Yes.
My attention was specifically drawn to that. And then I've just now seen 4 other butterflies. Right. So I got drawn to that as a metaphor, as opposed to looking at you, what have you. So there's a reason we got drawn to that. And when we get seeds like this, you go, oh, wow, that is such a lovely metaphor. Butterflies coming out of the clouds.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. There's
And
lots
these are
of,
like these thoughts, that you allow a thought to come in. Now, if you're running lots of internal dialogue, like the "oh woe is me, what am I having for supper tonight?" and I'm an imposter and all of that kind of stuff, you block out all these subtle senses. So meditation is the key to this. This is a key technology.
meditation is the key, isn't it?
Yeah.
And the more we do it, then it becomes just more natural because we're walking. We become almost like a walking meditation. It's not like we are going out or walking in a meditative way, forcing that to say, okay, well, I think I'll do a walking meditation. No, we become it. After, like someone like yourself who's been studying meditation for such a long time, you become conscious of these overstandings. You become conscious of what these thoughts are as they come in, as opposed to, and you can, then you get to choose where you want to go with them. All right, I'm going to jot that down, or I'm just going to stay with this and I'm just going to breathe with it. Isn't it becomes more like, it's like, be the peace we wish that we seek, right?
Yeah.
Be the conscious being that we're asking to become it, be it.
And those keys, those signals are sent to us all the time. So, for example, if I wanted to think of the next meditation that I wanted to record, I couldn't think of it. I have to go into meditation and receive it. And classically, that would be an eyes closed operation. But one of the things I teach is eyes open meditation.
Yes, you do. Yes, you
and in
do.
eyes open meditation, the world around you is your seed canvas. So can you just imagine this? If I was to record a meditation called Clouds of Butterflies.
David would be very pleased.
Exactly, but I got the seed idea because my attention was drawn somewhere. Now, we met through time management, but all that time management stuff I did back then, I realized was attention management.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. It just morphs into a way of living, I feel. And I personally, there was a time where I'd have to write it all down. I'd have to go, like you say, I'd have to drop into meditation in order to feel these things or receive them. For me, it would be writing in my journal, and then the awareness would be there, and the wisdom would come through the pen, etc. And that still happens, but thank goodness. And I use it faithfully. However, I don't need to. I seem to just constantly have these hits of inspiration that are there, that come from seemingly nowhere. And it's, okay, that just dropped in and that just dropped in. My problem, or my challenge, is there's so many and you can't do them all. And I'm very prolific, as are you. And so I'm constantly creating, which is awesome. And sometimes I just want to just be quiet. Shh. I've never gotten to no thought. Not yet. Do you?
Yeah, I've got a meditation technique called Just a Thought. I can share it. I'll share a link with you to it. And it takes you through this process I call the quantum collapse of thought.
Ooh.
And I read a book by Amit Goswami, who's been on my podcast about 3 times. He's a professor of quantum physics there out of Eugene, Oregon. Amazing guy. And I met him in London as well, which was a great privilege. He had this book, and he talks. There's another physicist called David Bohm. And Heisenberg's uncertainty principle, you can't know the velocity and the position of electrons. If you mention that thoughts are quanta too, David Bohm wrote, you can't know the content of a thought and know its direction at the same time. So if you think about the thought you're having right now, it gets replaced by the thought about the thought rather than the thought you're just having.
Of course. Yes. Yes. I remember you bringing that into.
Yeah. So that was a seed for me. Rather than when I read that, that just took me off in a different direction. And it's a bit like the clouds of butterflies. I went, right, okay, if that, I'm going to write a meditation using that principle. And so what happens if you keep thinking about the conscious thoughts in your mind, then your conscious thoughts, which are in the outer frontal cortex of the brain, they give up, they get bored and give up, and they go away. And so I've got this lovely technique, which I'll share by way of link with you, called Just a Thought. And it takes you through exactly this process where your thoughts can go to nothing.
Okay, I look forward to that, because I'm bombarded constantly with creative ideas and thoughts, and that sounds like a good one, and that feels like a good one, and that's a great one, and they all are. And
I remember that's management of this brain generator of thoughts. The next level, which is the next one you can apply to this, is to use the lower mind centers, the heart and the gut, in your decision making process.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, it's great. Yes. So let's say you got if you got idea A and idea B, the gut mind, you can't ask it a question, should I go with idea A or can I go with idea B? You've got to say first, should I go with idea A? Yes or no, green light, red light. And if you get a red light, you can say to your gut, well, what has to happen? What has to change so I can get a green light? And then the thought of how to do that comes in through the top of your head. It stirs up an ethereal whisper, as I call them, and comes from the top of your head. So if that changes, like, I'll just do that in spring, not now, then it'll give me the green light. You know what I mean? Then your gut can go with it. And then you can say to your heart, well, does your heart love this idea A? And then it's, maybe do it in spring. I'm totally in love with it. That's fine. That sorts the heart out. And then you can say, what about idea number B? Number 2 or number B, and then bearing in mind you just asked about project A with B, should I do B before A? Yes, no, or after A? So you can apply a temporal context to your decision making as well as just a yes or no context. Right?
Yes.
But it all comes back to flavors of thought, understanding that not all thoughts are necessarily what we think of our own, and not all thoughts start in the head.
Where do they come from?
Well, they come from the different dimensions. They come from you in the future. They come from you in the past. In the same way you can have past memories that stir things up. You can also tap into the future version of you. And one of the things I do at the same time I was doing the course on Daily Om about time, I also had a course on there, which I've now moved to another platform, of how you channel. And channeling, in my view, is not typing into Dear Aunt Maud. It's tapping into whatever you want to channel. So you can channel nature. You can go into nature and channel the tree. You can channel the stream. You can channel any, and you can channel the dear departed if that's your thing. But I like the idea that you're tapping into these higher levels of these higher planes of consciousness. But one of the things you can tap into, which I've taught many, many times, is to tap into the future you who knows the words you haven't written yet. Now, even if it's imagination, it seems to work.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Even if that future you is you an hour from now, or you a day from now, but there's a version of you that knows the words in the book when it's published. So imagine you're tuning into that version of you. It's amazing how you seem to get a complete first draft in one go. The first draft becomes your main draft, which is amazing.
That's beautiful. It reminds me of something that I did years ago. I think I was in my 30s, and I wrote from the 80-year-old me to the 30-year-old me.
Oh, that's such a beautiful thing to do, isn't it?
Yeah. The wisdom that came through to that 30-year-old, and of what she wanted to share and teach. And I guess that was channeling, because it wasn't, I wasn't thinking about it. It was just coming.
You can't write it any other way. Yeah.
No, you can't write any other way.
Yeah.
No, that's for sure. That's for sure. So what excites you the most these days about all of the different prolific ways in which you are expressing yourself?
I think what excites me the most is that I always have only one project in mind, and I don't worry about the project after that. And I like the way that a project comes to a conclusion, and then just towards the end of a project, because when we spoke last time, I just I think I was just publishing or just published the book of 12 short stories. And then I set out to do 12 ambient tracks based on each story, 12 meditations based on each story, and 12 lectures based on each story. Tomorrow I publish, the day after we're recording this, I publish the 36 bit of content inspired by the 12 short stories. So that project is over, but already the next project is forming, this project of overstanding. But even then, I'm learning to do it a different way. I'm overstanding the project itself. It's almost like pulling yourself up with your bootstraps. I used to go launch from one project straight into the other without a gap, not giving myself any time, not giving any time for the project to morph and this sort of stuff. So I'm actually giving myself, that probably doesn't sound like a lot of time, a whole month off.
Good for you.
And then starting it in February. So I'm not launching it. And that also gives the people that want to enjoy it a bit of time to catch up as well with this prolificness. Because often we can bombard people and people don't know where we are with things. It gives me a bit of time to get the messages right and the format right and that sort of stuff. So I'm just going to publish next month some old materials just to bring everyone up to speed. So it's almost like a pre-prandial to this amazing gastronomical feast. You know what I mean? Sweet. Yeah. I enjoy the fact that each project is an extension of the one before, even if it's completely different materials, but it also embraces everything I've learned so far.
Up until that time. Yeah. And don't you also use the time, like, of the month, a certain, whether it's new moon or it's full moon or certain times to guide you as to when would be the best time to write? Yeah. Or whatever your project is.
Yeah, so I've used Moon Calendar now for many, many years. So there's only two times that exist in nature, and that's moons, which is the orbit of them, and years and days as well. But so minutes, seconds, weeks don't exist, and classical months don't exist. So what I did is on the new moon, I published the book. And then every new moon after that, this year, I published an ambient track. Every first quarter, I published one of our Just for Today meditations. Every full moon, I published the meditation inspired by a certain number. So I went from numbers 1 to 12 and explored numerology in meditation and in music, in music is easy because there's 12 semitones in every octave. So I had a lot of fun with maths and music this year, and I learned new things, which is great. And every third quarter, I publish one of the lectures. So there's something's happening every 7 or 8 days, which is great. And I'm going to do the same thing for this year, but I mapped the new content across it. And there's something about going with moon time, which is twofold. One is that when the moon is behind Earth in its orbit, it actually slows the Earth down slightly. So when it's in first quarter, the gravitational pull of the moon slows the Earth down. When it gets to third quarter, it makes the Earth go slightly faster through space. So it's almost like you're going with this flow and ebb and flow of the gravity of the moon. But at the same time, when the moon's in different quarters, you're more tuned into the different planes. The different, the seventh, the ninth, the seventh, the fifth, and the third dimension. So when we're in new moon, new moon to first quarter, we're really tuned into the phase of ideas. When we're in first quarter to full moon, we're in what are called the dream phase, where we can make those ideas morph into one thing or another. When we're full moon to third quarter, we're in the execution phase or evaluation phase, where we're testing out these ideas, and then we can act from third quarter to new moon. And if you just follow that flow, it's great for marketing, by the way, and for events and launches and this sort of stuff. When you follow that flow, it's amazing how everything seems to go smoothly.
Wow. Do you have that in one of your books? Is that one of your...
I've got a lovely video you can embed in the blog.
Beautiful.
For writing or creating in tune with the moon.
Oh, wow. Okay, I know there will be a lot of people that
I'll send that over to you.
Like to know that. Yes. It's just brilliant. It's you just tap into so many levels of what using our planet and the moon and the universe, and to work for us. They're not just, oh, isn't that a pretty moon out in the sky? There's so much more that most of us, well, I don't like to generalize. Many people don't know. I don't know, for instance. I haven't really paid that much attention, and that hasn't been my focus, nor has numbers been. They confuse me. I'm dyslexic when it comes to that sort of thing. But I have great respect and understanding for people who do, and I can certainly follow a formula that can work for people who know these things.
Well, let me share something with you then, which is a good example of all of these things. So when I was writing the 12 short stories for this book called Soulways Insertions, I only had about the first 6 really quite formed as where they were in space and time, because the book goes backwards and forwards in time. And I had chapters 11 and 12 pretty much nailed, but I didn't have 7, 8, 9, and 10 sorted. And what happened was, but I knew by the time I'd written the 6th short story, the 7th would just turn up, and the 8th would turn up, and the 9th would turn up. When I got to 10, which I really didn't have any idea what I was going to go with this, I noticed that the number 10 and the moon of Jupiter, Io, are the same. Io looks remarkably like 1 and 0, doesn't it? So then it's about noticing the butterflies and the clouds behind you. And I went, oh, what if Io is the 10th level of consciousness of planet Jupiter? And what if planet Jupiter is a 10 level consciousness? And then I just went off. That was the, once you get that seed, that's it, boom, off, and the thing's done. And then when I went into writing the meditation about it, I explored 10 level consciousness. When I wrote the music about it, I used 10 different instruments all interplaying with each other. So there was lots of fun in creativity and how it all played out and stuff like that. Oh, but it all started with that seed idea, which I've never thought of before. 10 and Io draw the same, you know.
Incredible.
Yeah.
I love this, you know, and there's no accidents. It's interesting to me that you say, oh, and I wrote that book by accident, and that came to me by accident. And I don't think there are any accidents.
Oh, no, but at the time they feel like accidents, but to me, they
feel like it. Yeah.
And that lovely idea of serendipity. And I even wrote a whole meditation once called Serendipity in the Soul. But I had to go and look at where the word serendipity came from. And it comes from a short story, The Three Princes of Serendip. And Serendip is the old name for Ceylon. And it's how these guys will always find something by happy accident. So,
that's where that came from. Love it. Yeah. Serendipity, my friend. Yeah. When things just seem to move together, that's when I know I'm in the flow. When all of these things seem to converge, and all of a sudden, wow, the right things show up at the right time, and wow, and it's just magic.
So, you know, because we also, at the time we met, you created this Rewrite Your Life, I guess it's a book and a program and all sorts of stuff, but you've got a life mastery certification training at the moment. Do you think this ability to tune into the happy accident is a way of automatically allowing your life to rewrite itself?
Yes, I think it is. I think it is. I think for me, I think I've always been a natural optimist anyway, no matter what's been happening. And I always feel like I used to be envious of people like you, Tom, scientists and engineers and people who understand numbers, because numbers have always baffled my brain. And it's not something about being cutesy and the idea she doesn't understand. No, they really do have a very difficult time with the simplistic things like that. And so I think engineers, they must really understand, people who know how to build bridges, people who know. And then I realized, wait a minute, Junie, you get your information in your gut. And you understand things in a way that come to you in a different way, but maybe and I may not be able to put the equations on a piece of paper, but they come out in my way of creating in a way that makes sense to me. It's my overstanding in a way that that shapes it, and realize, so this is how this works. And that was a huge relief for me to know that, I wasn't left out. No, I disseminate information in a different way than people like yourself and people who, for even the Course in Miracles, which for many people is a book that they read and they study more. And I have very, very close friends and people I know who read the Course and they practice the readings. And for me, it was the concepts. I love them. I understand them. I know them. I try to live by most of them. And to read that for me was like I'd have to read the same words over and over so many times in order for me to understand. And for others, it's like eating candy. And so we all find our way into information. I needed Marianne Williamson's A Return to Love, where she put the Course in everyday language, or Jerry Jampolsky's book as well, that I was able to just look at those concepts and say, now I understand fear versus love. Okay, I can understand that, and it wouldn't be as complex. And so with the Rewrite Your Life, well, so many things have happened. That has been the course that I've been facilitating now for close to 30 years.
Wow.
And it came to me when I became a therapist. That's the same year that I put out my shingle as a therapist. I started writing courses because I had already known for my lifetime how the power of writing, the creative and the cathartic healing, the power that comes through the written word. So I started a workshop called Sacred Stories Celebrating Your Life Story, your life journey. Sacred Stories Celebrating Your Life Journey. And I started just doing those. And then eventually, maybe 5, 6, 8 years later after that, I wrote my first book, which was Rewrite Your Life. And I just carried on. And then I changed the name to Rewrite Your Life. And then I've had it, Daily Own actually had it on
That's
there
right,
for 5 years. Over 5,000 people took that course.
Wow.
And I'm so grateful because the results of rewriting one's life, when we look at the painful stories that hold us back, it's, what's the point? Like, why do we want to stay in a loop where we can't go beyond something that happened to us years ago? And we lose the power of now. We lose the life energy of today. So when we can look at those stories, can't change the past, but we can look at how the past has affected us, and we can change that story. We can look at it very differently, and we can see what it's come to teach us. And then there are gifts involved. There's so many gifts, and there it is. If this hadn't happened at that time, I wouldn't have necessarily met you. This wouldn't have happened. And you start to connect the dots and you think, wow, my life is a miracle. It's a miracle. And so now I have one of these, overstandings, this light bulb that came in from, I don't know where, but it was suddenly an idea that, Junie, it's especially these last couple of years, Tom, I have never had so many people coming to me for help in terms of the pain they're in and not knowing what to do. And with the issues over COVID and lockdowns and things being what life as usual, good, bad, or indifferent is what people knew. When all of those things were stripped away, that people were coming in droves. And I'm just one person. And I can't obviously do all of that. And I'm not the only person on the planet that does that. But for me, I realized that the results that I have received over 30 years of doing this program are stellar. So I'm now certifying other coaches and healers and therapists and people who are educators and who have gone through their own journeys and are now on the other side of healing so many of their own stories that have gotten them stuck. And now they're paying it forward in their own practices, in their own ways. And so, starting at the end of January. I know. I'm very excited about
that. That's very interesting. So the Rewrite Your Life program itself, then, I love it. You're pulling yourself up by your bootstraps by using writing to rewrite your life, which is, and storytelling, which is fantastic. And then it strikes me that you and I are going through the same transition pretty much at the same time. End of January is when I launched. You're launching end of January. And I'm going to rewrite my life by becoming a trainer of trainers. There will be overstanding practitioners, right? For you, there'll be Rewrite Your Life practitioners, which is fantastic.
Exactly.
But and I guess because we're at the sort of age where you think, right, well, we always think about our own mortality and that kind of thing, that we've got to pass this stuff on while we're still able to do it. And also, you can't deal with every single individual that can enjoy the stuff. The best way to get the material out there is to get other people to do it. So what sort of people then would you be looking for? Are they people, would it be a prerequisite they've been through the Rewrite Your Life program itself as a precursor?
No, because they're going to go through it with me.
Oh, fantastic. In
the training, you have to go through it in order to learn to teach it.
Okay.
But I'm looking for people who are coaches and are therapists, psychotherapists, or people who have gone from rags to riches emotionally, right? Mm-hmm. They've gone through their own dark night of the soul and they've found a way through it, and they are now in the world living they're empowered and they've got gifts to teach. So they may not even have been in the field, for instance, as a healer, but they may have the qualities of somebody that can be taught the skills of the Rewrite Your Life program. And so it's very exciting. And it's like you said, it's about passing the torch, and it's living and it's leaving that particular legacy, because I've got lots of things that I'm going on to as well, starting in 2022, that aside from that. So my musical, or David's in my musical, is we can see that is being produced in 2022. We're hoping for that to happen. And Acha, we wrote a song, the Academy for Creative and Healing Arts for people with mental health challenges. We co-wrote a song for a number of years ago, and the song with Lionel Richie and it was We Are the World, and Michael Jackson, and it was for World Aid in Africa. My idea with this academy for people with mental health challenges, and to come and fine-tune their own innate talents and learn more, and to have that wonderful feeling of, to me, when we are doing what we are, every one of us is born with a talent. We're born with an impulse to create. And when we're not creating, it doesn't matter what it is. It could be mathematics, it could be a garden, it could be, like David, there's this beautiful painting. It could be that, it could be whatever that creative expression is, we all have it. And when we don't have it, and that shuts down and closes down because of life circumstances and how many different ways that can happen, I think a part of our soul dies. We lose that part of us that needs to create. And so that's what the Academy is all about. So, and because I was diagnosed, as you know, and it's no secret now, with bipolar or illness when I was 20, and so I thought that was my identity. I thought that was the way I was going to live my life, in and out of hospitals. Well, and I was told the older I got, the worse it was going to get. Well, I threw that theory out of the water, and because it's just not the truth. It's not the truth. And I've worked with people for years, decades, watching people who didn't think they had a creative bone in their body soar when they started doing whatever their particular art form is. And so I see creative expression turning mental illness into mental health. And so I can't wait till COVID's over and we can cut the ribbon and so David and I wrote a song for mental health, where I can just see people around the world holding hands, people with, and everybody these days is stressed. It doesn't matter. You don't have to have some kind of diagnosis. In fact, one of the lyrics in the song is, "You aren't your diagnosis. You're not your prognosis. This is a brand new day."
Yeah, love it.
Yeah. So it's very exciting. Lots of very exciting stuff going down.
Oh, fantastic. Well, I love the synchronism there, Junie, of us both simultaneously rewriting where we are in our lives, which is great.
Yes. And you've also recently moved, or you have a new home? Did you build that?
New home, new project. We built an eco home about 5 years ago, and we've now got a new project, which is an old house, which we're having to upgrade as well. But it's in a much quieter place than where we were. Again, it's a bit that we got the learning. And then we want to do it in a place that we enjoy a bit more. So we're just about to start that work in the new year as well. So, which is really important. One of the things that the transition that I've been through, and I know you're going through, is this transition from not exchanging time for money, which is just a joy. It's taken me 17 years to get there. And they say never go up your day job without another good one to go to. But this whole creative journey has got to this point where the content itself generates the funds that I need, one, to do what I want to do exterior to this stuff, but also to keep funding the process, which is great. But what happens is that what I love happens is that the source of revenue is not the one you're expecting.
Right.
It's not the one you're expecting, if you know what I mean. So, and that's great. That's great to see. And I love the idea that it's all micropayments as well. So lots of little bits of content generating micropayments, a cent here, a couple of cents there, and this sort of stuff.
It adds up, right?
All coming together to be the amount that you need at that time. A part of the overstanding program is they're almost quite similar, but coming from different angles. Is this ability to allow the life that you are meant to live to find you, which is so people listening to this that might want to listen to this because they see me as a guest might actually discover that you, as the podcast host, has the perfect vehicle for them. And I think that's the key, is knowing which one is right for you. What's the right one to do now? And it's not that one is better than the other or different from the other. They're different approaches to a kind of similar desire that we all have, which is to evolve to our personal state of highest evolution.
It just reminded me of Wayne Dyer had this meditation, and I remember that he says, in a dream state, we don't go over there to catch the broom comes to us, right? we don't walk over there. So it's kind of like you're saying now, just allow life to come to us.
Yeah. I think, was it John Denmore from the Doors, the drummer of the Doors, said the magic doesn't come from us, it comes through us.
Yes. Yeah. Not the truth. What is your take these days, Tom, as to what is happening in the world with respect to the shutdowns and COVID and where you see it heading? And I would love to hear what you have to say about that.
Well, I don't know whether this virus escaped from a lab, whether it's man-made or whatever. And that, in some ways, is academic. It's out there and it's doing stuff. But I think what's happening is that it's and actually the 11th story of the Soul Waves Insertions book is about COVID 38, which comes out in 2039, and it invokes the elves, the goblins, and the trolls in the complete elimination from of COVID from the Earth plane by going into the underworld. So it's a magical story in the kind of J.R. Tolkien kind of way. That's just by coincidence. So that's really my take on it in a fictional way. But my take on it is that we're just about to reach a new level of enlightenment, which is amazing. Now, and again, the same way that we don't find the enlightenment or trying to get to it. What we do is we end endarkenment.
Mm-hmm. Endarkenment.
Yeah. So this is what's going on at the moment, and it's not just happening with COVID. It's happening with climate change and all this sort of stuff, and the way that we've abused the planet. But then we were learning. You know, we're just learning what it's like to be a planetary caretaker. I like the idea that each person on the Earth right now is learning how to do this so they can go off to another planet somewhere in the universe and then do it in their next life. So this is like a breeding ground for planetary caretakers, if you know what I mean. So you've got to think cosmically about these things as well as just in this sort of global context, just on planet Earth, or spaceship Earth, as I like to call it. So I think we're coming to the end of endarkenment, and a lot of the dinosaurs are thrashing around and making a lot of noise and doing things not ideally, you know, and they're not doing it from the right place. And it's kind of shaking things up, and it's making us rethink. So in the middle of the first lockdown, I wrote a new book that launched this whole new thing that I did throughout the other lockdowns. And we're probably going to go through like a fourth or fifth lockdown this year. Great time to think about rewriting your life. You know what I mean? So we've always got to see opportunity in adversity, if you know what I mean. And
absolutely.
And we've got to see that the Earth is a biosphere. We're actually a very small percentage of that biosphere. Viruses are like a huge percentage of it. They've been on the Earth for many billions of years. Who's to say a virus hasn't got any more right to life than a human? Having said, this particular virus likes humans too, as its breeding ground, so it needs humans. And if humans died out, then the virus might die out. But then there'll be other viruses that get other life forms, etc., etc. So I think it's an opportunity, even as bad as it is. It's an opportunity for us to learn different ways of doing. So, for example, a lot less people commuting, a lot less plane flights going on and stuff like that. The atmosphere is clearing itself up. So, you know, you could imagine that Lady Gaia herself, the consciousness of Mother Earth, has generated this virus to get rid of this horrible dis-ease called humanity. But that would be to do a disservice to humanity, because we're doing wonderful things as well as some of the less wonderful things that are going on there. So I think it's a wake-up call. I think it's an opportunity. I think we've got to be more sensible about how we're going about it. You know, the amount of plastic waste which is being generated with all this PPE and stuff like this. So we're creating another landfill nightmare going down the line. So there's not learning going on. There could have been, all this stuff could have been done with more recyclable materials. And the more testing that goes on, over this Christmas, we've done more tests, I think we've done the whole of the year, because I've got a father-in-law in a care home and my sister-in-law's in a care home. So we had to doubly test both sides of everything for people to see each other. But I was really mindful, every time we did a test, we're generating plastic waste, single-use, so much single-use plastic. So while there's a learning going on, there's also some learning's not happening at the time. So what will happen is it'll keep biting back at us until we get all the learnings, until we get the overstanding.
Until we get the overstanding. Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree with you. I think that life is always presenting us with an opportunity to learn, opportunities to learn from whatever's going on, and to be that eye of the storm. Because everything is a projection from the inside out. And so if we can find our way, and we can, using that imagination and using a intention to stay grounded and centered and do the sorts of things that we know, like meditation or walks in nature, or things that make us happy and turn on fun things, and whatever it is that's going to lift our spirits, to really fill ourselves up, right? and to be able to hold that vibration of all is well, in spite of what it looks like out there, then it is, and it can be. And then we can tune in to those higher levels of consciousness of where they're going to take us. And that's really exciting to me.
And on that note, I've got another thing I'm launching, and I'm tapping into. It's not my own creation. Been invited to get involved with a kind of pay Bitcoin idea. So the only way you buy into this system, and I say buy in inverted commas, is you have to. On my website at the moment, I give things away for free in exchange for an email address. The classic email marketing. You get something for free, email someone and buy something, that kind of thing. And I've always known that model's fairly tired. But I got invited to be in the beta program for this kind of pay coin. And kind of pay coins, you only get the free thing by doing 3 random acts of kindness.
I love it.
And then you get access to the free thing, right? And then what happens is that generates 1 kind of pay token. And that kind of pay token can only be spent by someone who's trading in kind payments. So someone could come to someone could get on someone else's website, get 10 kind tokens, and that would equate to something which I normally sell. Now, where's the money coming in? It doesn't matter. So what happens is the money then comes from a different source.
That's what you were talking about, right? We never know.
You don't have to worry about where it's coming. What you're doing is we're sending a wave of kindness across.
Of kindness, which is so beautiful. Yes, which is so beautiful. Oh, yeah. How do we find out about that?
Well, it'll be on my website, hopefully by the end of January. If you're interested, I'll connect you with Jane Murray, who's the purveyor of it as well.
I'm always interested in acts of kindness.
She's an amazing, intelligent person. She's one of life's polymaths. She's an amazing person. She's a meditation guide on Insight Timer, and she's got an organization called Peace Beam. So she's one of the progenitors behind it. That's just a stunning idea.
Beautiful, beautiful.
I like it because I've got no idea how it actually is going to work.
Well, just keep doing those random acts of kindness and you'll know.
It sounds like a really fantastic thing to get involved with.
Well, it does, really. How can it not? How can it not? You're passing on kindness. I'm actually on a week of kindness. I think it's starting 2 weeks from now. It's the week of kindness and gift giving summit.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, it's in 2 weeks, and it's 100 different people, and we're all giving our gifts away, and people of all these different speakers from all walks of life who are sharing their knowledge and wisdom about whatever that particular subject happens to be, and for a week. So that'll be fun.
And we saw so much of that, didn't we, during COVID? You know, for all the things that our so-called leaders weren't doing. The grassroots the levels of kindness of the grassroots was just amazing.
Oh, stellar. I know. Yeah. No, there's so much that just expands my heart. Time and time again. I don't listen to the news. It's amazing how much seeps through. But I'm one of these very blessed people that what comes through my news feeds are usually those acts of kindness and what good things are happening. And then those are the things that people share on the social media that I watch and listen to and see. And that's what keeps me afloat during these times, and is just seeing how resilient we are, and that majority of people in the world care. We really care. We care about one another. We care about life. We care about the planet. And so people are going, what? Well, I think it's had to happen. It couldn't keep going on in the way it was going to. It's been going for so many years, decades, centuries, where we've lost that whole idea of what humanity is, or some people have, the ones seem to have that power. And there's going to be a dissolution for sure.
Yeah, and it's
then
really
we're
shown
gonna-
up, isn't it? To me, it's shown up that many of our so-called leaders have got no idea how to actually lead, and
No.
they're only thinking about as far as their next re-election. They're not thinking about leaving a legacy for their children, their grandchildren, and the idea that if you do reincarnate, then it's best to leave the world in a better state than when you were in it. So you might have to come back and do it all over again. So there's very few of our traditional so-called leaders that are really leading. So in my view, the change is going to come from the periphery. And
It's very exciting.
The leaders will catch up eventually.
Well, there'll be new leaders, and those old leaders will learn whatever karmic things they need to learn. And it's very exciting, knowing that we're moving into an enlightened world that we haven't seen in this way before, just like the world has never been in this particular place before. It's exciting to who will be those leaders. Well, they're here now. They're all of us.
Mm-hmm.
We're doing our little bit, the way in which we're doing it. And then there'll be those who are inspired to step in and do it. And, I hate the word politics, but they'll do it in a way that they're the leaders in a benevolent way.
Mm-hmm.
And that's exciting.
Mm-hmm.
And it's happening now. It's happening in every backyard. There, years ago, long before it be, I gathered up this information. I wrote across Canada to magazines, and I just put 1 or 2 lines. Are you interested in good news? And if you are, send me your good news and tell me what you do in life. And over a course of a year, I did this. I ran this little ad right across the provinces. And I had stacks of letters from every walk of life of a person, from judges to teachers to housewives to kids to whatever, telling me their good news. Well, I filled them up. This isn't exactly scientific information that whoever does these science things that to get the best way of collecting that kind of data. But I was living in Toronto, and I called all the TV stations at the time. So there was City TV, and there was CTV, and there was CFTO, and there was CBC, and all of those. And I went, I found out who their program directors were, and I was like Santa Claus. I had a sack of letters. The whole country wants to see good news. And I called it the Good Night News. I said, after all of the devastating horrors that you're throwing into on television into people's living rooms just before they go to bed at night, can we have a half an hour, 15 minutes even, of good night news? Good news, we call it the Good Night News. So after you've seen all the other stuff, can we look at something that's going to uplift people's spirits so they can start? And every single one said, good news doesn't pay. And the last person said, are you kidding? We don't have that amount of time. I said, you don't? 24-hour news station? You don't have 15 minutes? You don't have a half an hour to devote to good news? And I had given all these examples too. I wrote up a real excellent proposal, I thought. And he said, you sound like my mother. I said, well, you should listen to your mother. And I was escorted
Hilarious.
out.
Hilarious.
Yeah, well, I'm still into all of that good news because there's still good news. And you're doing amazing, beautiful good news out there on the planet for us, Tom.
Thank you so much.
So value what you do.
Fantastic.
So is there anything else you would like to share today before we wind this up and moving into 2022?
I like the idea about the breath. And when as the moon revolves around the Earth's surface goes up by about 10 foot. So the moon's gravity distorts the surface of the Earth. So the Earth breathes in and out every 28, 29 days, which is interesting. And I like the idea that as the planets go around the sun, a little bit of the sun just gets moved as well. So everything is breathing. I love the idea then of people getting to a certain point. We get to the what you call the classic middle age, that you've been breathing in for all this time, for maybe 40, 50, 55, 60 years. And now is the time to breathe out. I'm just going to share that concept, all that wisdom in, all that experience in, and then breathe it all out.
Just feel the tension, just.
Yeah. In any way you want. That could be in the dissemination of your experience, or just letting go.
Letting go.
Allowing your perfect future to come to you.
Love that. I love that. So filled with wisdom. I won't wait till next January 1st to have you on the podcast again, please.
We'll do that. We'll lock in the end of 22 as a definite, and then we'll do other things when your attention is drawn to it. So when the attention is drawn, if I pop into your mind or vice versa, that's the time that we need to get back together again.
100%. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. Well, this is an absolute joy and privilege and pleasure to see you again, Tom. And can't wait for the day for you to land here on our beautiful continent. And yes, and hug you in person.
Like Greta Thunberg, I might come by sailboat though, because it's more ecological.
I love that idea. All right. Yes, you can do that. That was the first way I ever arrived on your shores.
Oh, there you go.
1969. Yes, I took a student ship across the Atlantic from New York and landed in Southampton, England. Yes.
Stone's throw from my new house. There you go. So anyway.
Oh, all right. There you
go.
So thank you again, Tom.
Pleasure.
Wonderful. Where do people find you? I will have all of your information up on the Soul Connection podcast. But just let us know the best way to reach you.
Well, the best way to get it is my website, www.tomevans.co. But also I'm a meditation guide, loads of free meditations on Insight Timer, insighttimer.com/Tom Evans. And I've lost count of how many meditations are on there and how many hours of material. But go along there and just, if you did nothing else but just chill out to me or many of the guides on there, then you'd be doing yourself a great favor.
Oh, absolutely. And thank you for introducing me to them, because I'm on there too as a meditation.
Yeah, I love it.
I know. Yes. Every time I look, there are more that you've just done with your ambient music. It's fantastic.
Yeah, they don't bill themselves as this, but I think they are becoming one of the biggest social networks of like-minded and awakened souls on the planet.
Insight Timer.
Yeah.
Absolutely. There's like over 1 million people who are on that site.
It's 20 million meditators, 6,000 guides. It's like a guru in your pocket, which is just amazing.
I know. And it's free.
And it's free. Yeah.
It's free. Yeah. Yeah. So many wonderful tools for people to tap into, to use, and to know. We just have to say yes.
Fantastic.
Thank you, Tom.
Be
God
blessed.
bless.
Take care.
Too. Bye-bye.